Hi folks, I just want to throw 10 questions out to atheists out there. The more friendly atheists, the atheists that I've met at universities, like atheist Mohammed, who I met in Manchester recently. These are the really kind of nice atheists who I often meet throughout Manchester and on my travels around the country at various universities. And so these are 10 questions I'd like to put to, I would call them atheist students. So you're a student and you go to university, and these are the 10 questions that I'd like to put to you. The first question I'd like to put to you is this: how can you believe that there is no God when you believe that something came from nothing? You know, how can you be rational or intellectually honest if you believe that something came from nothing? And when I say nothing, I'm not on about Krauss, who says that nothing is something. I'm on about nothing is nothing. How can you be intellectually honest and say that there is no God if you believe something came from nothing? That is not rational. That is just not a rational position to be. You might try to get around it with string theory and all the rest of it, or multiverse theory. There's no evidence for these things. So the point is this: you're faced with historical fact that there was a beginning to the universe. You're faced with that fact, and the conclusion of that fact should lead you to an understanding that there is a God, because from a scientific point of view it makes no sense that something can come from complete nothing. Now you might say, well, you can't say that because we haven't really analysed nothing. Well, that shows how absurd your position is. How can you analyse scientifically nothing? It's an absurdity. It's just absurd. So answer the question: how can you not believe in God if the universe had a beginning? Faced with these facts of a beginning of a universe, why don't you face the facts of the conclusion? Thank you for listening. The next question to student atheist is: what understanding do you have of the history of science in the West? That's my question. What understanding do you have of the history of science in the West? Tell us your understanding. Are you aware of the Christian contribution to science in the history of Western thought? Are you aware that in the 10th century there were monks who contributed to the scientific method? Are you aware of Francis Bacon, Kepler, Galileo, that they were Christians, that they contributed to the scientific method? To John Newton, are you aware the Royal Society was started by people committed to the Bible, to Christianity? Are you aware of this? Could you give us some understanding of what your understanding of Western thought is? How can you talk about Galileo and things like that when you're just not being honest about the political situation there, that you don't know the full history of Galileo, and you're not telling the truth there, that a lot of that issue was Galileo not getting on with the Pope, and that there were Christians, bishops and thinkers and scientists who agreed with Galileo. So, you know, if we look at the history of science, it's been influenced by Christianity in a massive way, in a positive way. The fact that Christians believed that creation was good inspired the scientific method to go out and investigate nature. The fact that the scriptures talk about causality encouraged people to go out and investigate nature, because there were causal events that you could deduce certain things from. So, you know, Descartes, people like that. So Pascal, etc. So what is your understanding? Why is your understanding of the history of Western thought about the scientific method better or more coherent than my understanding? Thank you for listening. It's often said by skeptics, those who are atheists, that those who believe in the Bible or Christianity are closed-minded, and they've closed themselves off from the scientific facts. And that is why they are fundamentalist, and they are not fundamentalist. If you're not fundamentalist, let me ask you this question: what range of scholarship do you know concerning historical Jesus studies? And if you answer that and don't know very much, then who's the fundamentalist? I know the range of scholarship on historical Jesus studies. Now at this point of the video, if you don't know, then that shows you're the fundamentalist, that you've closed your mind off from the historical investigation and the facts. So the question is, who's the fundamentalist here? Is it you or is it me? And let's test it on historical Jesus studies. Can you honestly say right now, and be honest, that you know the full range of the scholarship on this topic? And if you don't know right at this moment in time, it's hypocritical of you to point the finger at me when you don't know the full situation. Hi folks, hope you're okay today. As atheists, you often go on about your people of evidence, and you only believe in things that are rational and evidential. So give me evidence for something coming out of nothing. Give me scientific evidence that this can happen. I'm not talking about quantum physics. I'm not talking about there is something there that we call nothing, but it is something. I'm talking about nothing, absolutely nothing. Or else you're saying that matter is eternal, which we know matter isn't eternal. So that means if matter isn't eternal, there must have been nothing before there was something. So explain to me how something can come from nothing. Scientifically, give me the evidence for it. Next thing, give me the evidence for abiogenesis, that life came from non-life. Give me the evidence that reality is here and that it's not in our imagination. Prove to me these three things evidentially. And if you can't prove to me these three things evidentially, then you hold to three things. You hold that something came from nothing, you hold to life came from nothing, and you hold to that reality is a real reality. And you have all these things based on faith and not evidence. Prove me wrong. Thank you for listening and take care. How do you know that your brain is not in the matrix? So give me those three answers. Give me three facts, three evidential bases for what you think. And if you can't, admit to yourself that you do have things that are based on faith. Next thing is, give me evidence that evolution is true, if it is true. And I want evidence in three areas. First of all, I want the mathematical probabilities. What are the mathematical probabilities for evolutionary process? Take a cell and give me some mathematical information about what is the mathematical probability of a cell developing using the mechanism of mutations and natural selection. Just give me some mathematical data that I can look at and assess and see what's the probability of an actual cell developing according to the mechanism that you're talking about. Second thing, give me some scientific, observable and repeatable evidence about mutations. That mutations can be, within natural selection, can produce the variety of kinds that we see today. So just give me some empirical data where you have tested it and you have shown it to be the case that bacteria, when it's been developed in mutation and adaptation, no longer is bacteria. Show me some scientific observable evidence for this contention. Thirdly, give me a rationale how you get morality from your evolutionary perspective. How you are not logically inconsistent when evolution says that evolution is amoral. It is a process of an amoral process. It doesn't have right and wrong. So if a 5-year-old child is raped in the evolutionary process, there is neither right nor wrong, but you know that it's wrong. How do you bridge the gap? If you say it's by reason, then reason is still part of the evolutionary process, so it doesn't get out of the amoral position. If you say, well, society says it is, well, tough luck. Society might say it is, but that doesn't make it objective. Your objective stance is that the evolutionary process is amoral. So you cannot say logically and intellectually honestly that raping a 5-year-old child is wrong according to your foundation, unless you do an intellectual leap or a schizophrenic jump from immorality to morality. But if you do that, you've left your brains behind because you've not been able to fill the gap and show how the two come together. So those are three things: mathematical probability, repeatable evidence for mutations, and an explanation for human morality without showing your irrationality. Make it coherent. Okay? How you get from a morality process to morality. And the two have to go together. Be very interested to hear how you do it.